7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hey everyone, this is Rachel. Thanks for clicking on my video. And I came in to do another Say What. And this is where I look at crazy or funny stories. So this first one up is, she did what with that cheesecake? So let me just set the background story for you. So this lady goes into Kroger's and she orders a custom-made cheesecake for her child's birthday. Now, you know, when you do that, you tell them what type of cheesecake you want, what you want on it, and then you set up the date to come back and pick it up. So that was all set up. Kroger's did their thing, and it was time for this woman to come back and pick up the cake. Now, when she got there, Kroger's went and got the cake, and when they brought it out, she took a look at it, and Miss Thang was not satisfied. So what she did is she took that fucking cheesecake and drop kicked that bitch across the store. Now, as the cheesecake flew up in the air, of course, you know the other shoppers were alarmed. And when the cheesecake was coming down, Miss Thang right here was cussing up a storm and causing such a ruckus that they had to call the fucking police on her crazy ass. Now, as you may have guessed, this drop-kicking psychotic soccer mom did have to appear in court over her Kroger incident. Now, when she was in court, the judge told her that shopping with her was akin to shopping with a 5-year-old who was throwing a temper tantrum. So, for the temper tantrum that she threw in Kroger's, the judge sentenced Miss Thing to 300 hours of community service, a $500 fine, and due to the nature of her pastry crime, the judge thought it would be important to add one more thing to the sentencing: ongoing therapy. Now, you might think that this was an isolated event, but fortunately for us, it was not. One day, this same woman decided to go get ice cream. So, like many of us do, she found herself standing before that great big board that tells all the different flavors that the ice cream parlor had. So finally, after making her choice, she walks up to the counter and places her order, only to discover that the very flavor that she has so painstakingly decided on was sold out. So what do you think she did? She walked right up to that ice cream parlor worker and slapped the fucking shit out of them. So once again, she was headed off to court for an assault case. Now, this is a story that just keeps giving and giving and giving. So, with 2 under her belt, you would think that she would go somewhere and sit her fucking ass down. But no, no, no. She is at work and she's having a slight disagreement with one of her coworkers. This disagreement escalates, and of course, this psychotic soccer mom, not being able to handle her emotions, proceeds to whoop her coworker's motherfucking ass. She put a thumping on that person, and yet again, she ends up in front of a judge with a 3rd assault case. Now you say 3? 3? Well, we must not forget about the cheesecake. So it was the cheesecake, the ice cream worker, and now the coworker. Yes, this patron of society is a drop-kicking, slapping, ass-whooping patron of society. Now, I don't like coming in giving you these sorts of stories. It hurts my heart to have to impart this kind of news on you, but I just felt that someone had to do it, and I chose that someone to be me. So this next story is a bit of a story time on my part. Years ago, when my children were much younger, we were on our way to the grocery store and we were following behind this car. We got to a stop sign and we noticed that the people in the car had thrown something out the window. Now, when we looked at that something, it was a crate. And we wondered why they would throw a crate out the window. Now, as we pulled up to the stop sign, we noticed that something in the crate moved. And I stopped and pulled over to see exactly what it was that they had thrown out the window, only to discover that there were 4 puppies that were thrown out the window in that crate. Now, what me and my children did is we scooped up the puppies, we put them back in the crate, and we took them home and fed them and gave them water. Now, having 4 puppies, I had to go to the pet store and buy supplies for the puppies. Now, while I was at this pet store, I met a woman that, I explained what had happened and how I had found all of these puppies, and the woman asked for one of them. So that left us 3. We take the puppies home, and I speak to my brother about what had happened, and he asked if he could have one of the puppies because a neighbor was looking for a dog. So I gave one of the puppies to my brother, and then that left us with 2. Now my children became attached to these 2 puppies, and they named them Coco and Frosty. Now, having never had a dog in my adult life, and these puppies were so little, I had to learn to potty train them. And it was hard. They were pooping all over the house and, just causing a little ruckus, but they were so cute that we couldn't bear to part with them. Now, one of the puppies, the one named Frosty, did not like my ex. And my ex just had a problem with this puppy from the beginning, and he wasn't an animal lover. So having those 2 puppies in the house pooping all over everywhere, he was not down for it. So we did end up keeping the puppies, and they grew up a little bit. So about 8 months, 9 months later, we had come home and one of them was missing. So I asked my ex, where is the puppy? And he told me that he had taken the puppy, which was now a dog. I think it was more of probably not a few months later. I think it was like maybe a year or so later. So again, I came home from work and I noticed that one of the puppies was missing, and I asked him where it was, and he jokingly was saying that he took the dog and dropped it off down by the river. So not believing him and not thinking that he would actually do something like that, I was like, Martin, you didn't really take the puppy and drop it down by the river. And he said, yes, I did. So, I'm not believing him. I go on just thinking he probably gave it away, and like we did with the other puppies. So I didn't think anything about it. So about a month or so went by, and I come home from work one day, and that puppy, and I'm going to stop referring to it as a puppy because by then it was about a year and a half later. So the dog was about a year and a half old. But I pull up in the driveway, and who should be sitting on the side of the house in the shade but the one called Frosty, the one that my ex had said he had dropped down by the river. Now, Frosty was all dirty and looked tired and a little malnourished, so I took him into the house, and me and the kids took him down the basement, and we gave her a bath and, got her fed and rested and everything. But my ex had called later on in the afternoon, and you know how they call home to see what's going on. And I told him, I said, Frosty is here. So he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, Frosty, when I came home, Frosty was on the side of the house, like waiting for me. And he was like what was she doing? And then how did she get back? And then I realized that really he did take the dog down and drop it off by the river. And I call it the river, but it wasn't. We lived in Cleveland and we were near Lake Erie, and he just took the dog, I guess, in an area and just left the dog there, the bastard. But yeah, he said, well, what is she doing? So I jokingly told him that Frosty was standing on the side of the house, patting her paw with her hands on her hips, saying, where's that motherfucker at? So he was like, you know how men can sometimes be silly. So after I told him that, he was like, are you serious? She's actually there? And I was like, yeah. And I, again realized that he really did take this dog down to the river. So he comes home from work that night, and from the moment he entered the house, now Frosty was no longer a puppy. She was a dog about a year and a half old. And from the moment he entered the house, she was growling at him. And, we had Coco and Frosty back together now. And Coco was fine with him. But Frosty, the one that he took and dropped down the river, you know, was not having him. If he raised his voice in the house, you know how the kids are doing something and you yell and tell them, stop all that noise. Frosty would jump up and we would have to restrain her because she would be growling and baring her teeth at him. And I remember one day I was upstairs and I heard him calling me. He was like, Rachel, Rachel. But he wasn't yelling loudly. So I came to the top of the stairs and I was like, yeah, what is it? And he was like, come here, come here. And so then I come down the stairs, and what it is he had been taking a nap on the couch. And Frosty had wandered into the living room and she was standing over here, him with froth dripping from her lips, growling at him. And he was scared to get up off the couch because she was so taunt and I guess scary that he was afraid of her. And so I came down and I got Frosty and I was laughing at him. I was like, you know that she's doing all this because you took her and dropped her down by the river and she is getting back at you. And he was like, we got to get rid of her. He said, I can't even, have peace in my own home. He was talking about that everywhere that he went, like if he went in the bathroom and took a shower and he came out, Frosty was there standing by the door waiting to kill him. And he was worried that one day, we wouldn't be home and he would be in the house with Frosty and Frosty would fuck him up. So eventually we told the kids that, you know, this dog is not, fitting into the house because the Frosty is trying to kill Daddy and we have to get rid of Frosty. So I don't know, y'all. I think Frosty heard us making plans to get rid of her. And then one day I had her, in the backyard. We had a wooden gate all around our backyard. So I put her out in the backyard so she could just run around, and I was in the house cooking and whatever. But I came back outside to give Frosty some water, and Frosty was gone. I think Frosty was smart. Frosty was like, y'all already done took me down and dropped me off by the river, and now I heard y'all planning to get rid of me. So Frosty had made her great escape, and we never saw Frosty again. We put up signs all over the neighborhood, pictures of Frosty, but Frosty had escaped, and it was because she had been taken down by the river by one of her masters, and she was not having it. And this is a story about how smart dogs are. Now, I grew up having a little dog that looked like Benji, and when I found those four puppies, at first I was overwhelmed with the responsibility of all of them, but once we got it down to two and Frosty came back, and we had kind of learned the rigors of potty training puppies in the house and they weren't pooping all over it everywhere anymore. We kind of got used to them. But poor Frosty, she was a smart dog and understood English, and Frosty was in that kitchen, in that backyard, and Frosty had planned her escape. She was thinking, the first time they let me out, I'm fucking out of here. I don't know where they're sending me. I guess I'll go find my own home. And y'all, that is the the end of my Say What. I hope you enjoyed it and you guys have a wonderful day.